21 years UNIKOM serves. Educate the nation. Welcome to Universitas Komputer Indonesia. 15 best private universities in Indonesia according to Shimago in 2021. 20 best Indonesian private universities according to 4ICU in 2021. UNIKOM stands in the center of Bandung City on Dipati Ukur Street number 112 to 116, West Java, Indonesia. UNIKOM has an exclusive lobby design in the smart building. Serves students and prospective students both offline and online. UNIKOM has a public relation and protocol directorate that bridges internal to external communication. In BISCOM, which helps students and lecturers to develop entrepreneurships. PDSI, which manage UNIKOM's IT system with the help of data server facilities. UNIKOM has 7 faculties, consisting of 28 study programs. Electrical engineering, industrial engineering, regional and urban planning, visual communication design, interior design, informatics engineering, informatics management, information system, architecture engineering, computer system, computer engineering, computerized accounting. UNIKOM Library is on the 8th floor with a collection of more than 15,000 book titles, 38,000 copies, both from print and electronic media. On the next floor, there are communication science, international relation, governance science, finance and banking, marketing management, management, accounting, civil engineering, Law Science. Japanese Literature. English Literature. King Sejong Institute. UNIKOM has 3 master programs: Master in Information Systems, Master of Management, Master of Design. And here's the rector activities. UNIKOM has various internal activities to external activities such as ICOBEST, International Conference on Business, Economic, Social Science, and Humanities. INCITES, International Conference on Informatics, Engineering, Science, and Technology. UNIKOM has several divisions to help to develop the potential of students. Code Labs Division, ERG Division, Robotic Division, Rocket Division, Animation Division, As a support, UNIKOM has UNIKOM TV. UNIKOM Kreasi Media, Hits UNIKOM Radio, UNIKOM is a champion campus, has various national to international achievements. The International Champion of InnoSurf 2020, the International Champion of InnoSurf Contest 2018, 2015, and 2013. First Champion International Huion Art Contest 2020. Top 2 the International Champion of Pablo Art Contest 2020. First Champion International Web Technologies of Virtual Skills Competition 2020. The International Champion of Paku Bumi Open Championship 2020, 2019, and 2018. World Champion in ICT 2019, Kazan, Russia. The Chicken Soul application from Code Labs won the Merit Award APICTA 2019 in Vietnam. The Champion of International Robot Contest, the annual 14 Robo Games 2018. The Champion of International Robot Contest 2016, 2015, and 2012. International Competition of Microsoft 2015. Champion of World Skills Competition 2013. The Asia's first Champion of Multimedia Animation Competition, Asia Graph Revolution Award 2017. First Champion Gemasa 2017. First Champion World Skills Asia 2018. The Champion of Asia Pacific ICT Award APICTA 2018 and 2012. The 16th Asia Pacific ICT Award APICTA 2016. First Champion and Runner-Up Asian International Hackathon 2021. Champion of Hackathon 2018. Asian Skills Competition 2018. Champion of Asian Skills Competition 2016, 2014, and 2012. The winner of Startup Asian Awards ICTA 2018. Number 1. The highest copyright universities in Indonesia, Ministry of Law and Human Rights 2020. First Champion National of Innovation 2020. First Champion of National Digital Content Identic 2020. Number 1 National Champion of Identic 2020. Rifest, first champion of the National Imagine Cup and became Indonesia's representative at the Imagine Cup Asia Regional 2020 in Singapore. National Champion of Gemastic 2020 and 2016. Top 10 National in 2 categories, Interface Design and User Experience and Software Gemastic 2017. National Champions of Badminton Competition Day 2020. 1 gold and 1 silver medal. UNIKOM won for a 6th time in the Students' League Lima Badminton 2020. Champion of Badminton Lima WJC 2018. National Champion of Kotasi 2020. National Champion of Taekwondo Jabar Open 2020. National Champion of Jabar Karate Championship 2020. National Champion of Canon Semarang Photo Marathon 2020. National Champion of Animation Indonesia Revolution Award 2019. UNIKOM won West Java Innovation Award West Java's Culture and Tourism 2018. National Champion of ICT TBIG Creation 2018. The National Champion of Indonesia ICT Award in ICTA 2015, 2014, and 2013. First and second champion for category of software and the first champion for category of animation and games in West Java Apps 2018 competition. Champions of Co-Creation Startup 2018. Champion of Hackathon Startup 2018. Champion of Hackathon IWIC 2016. First National Champion of Internet of Things Technology Development ITB 2017. The second National Champion of Technofest 2017. First National Champion of Line Creativate 2017. National Champion of Rocket Contest 2019. 2017. 2016. 2015. 2014 and 2010. National Champion of Electronic Design Contest 2016. National Champion of Confest 9 2016. National Champion of Microsoft 2016. National Champion of Microsoft Word Citizenship Category 2015. National Champion of Microsoft Word Innovation Category 2015. National Champion of Indosat Wireless Innovation Contest 2016. National Champion of PIMNAS 2015. National Champion of Telkom Smart Campus TESCA 2014, 2013, and 2009. Indonesia Best School of Management 2013 and 2015 Private University Swamedia, Indonesia Best Private University Swamedia 2013. Let's join us, Campus of the Champions. UNIKOM, quality is our tradition.
Jaya Ama Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, attentive audiences, and fellow participants. Welcome to the 5th International Conference on Business, Economic, Social Sciences, and Humanities, ICOBEST 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin the conference by singing the national anthem of Indonesia Raya and Mars of UNIKOM.
Indonesia tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu ibuku. Indonesia kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku, marilah kita berseru, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah badannya, untuk Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang kucinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang kucinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Universitas Komputer Indonesia dengan langkah tegak berjalan menuju arah yang terdepan, unggul dalam ilmu pengetahuan. Universitas Komputer Indonesia tingkatkan sumber daya manusia untuk kepentingan bangsa. Demi Indonesia kita tercinta, tak goyah, tak gentar, menembus tantangan. UNIKOM maju berjaya, menyala di dada semangat membara. UNIKOM jaya selamanya. Universitas Komputer Indonesia tingkatkan sumber daya manusia untuk kepentingan bangsa. Demi Indonesia kita tercinta.
Dear fellow participants and attentive audiences, it has been a pleasure for us to host this series of conference where not only the numbers of participants, but also the number of keynote speakers has increased this year. And therefore, we will hold a 2-day webinar this year. We need to remind you that this conference can also be accessed through UNIKOM's YouTube channel, so you can participate in YouTube UNIKOM. On top of that, ladies and gentlemen, we must then recognize the committee's tireless effort in managing the series of conference online for the first day, the 30th of May, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to the Rector of Universitas Komputer Indonesia, Professor Insinyur Haji Edi Suryanto Sugoto MT, for his endless support to this conference. We also thank the Vice Rectors and Deans in Universitas Komputer Indonesia for their support. Our sincere appreciation, of course, is also extended to our keynote speakers for today, who have dedicated their time and knowledge to share their perspectives in this conference. We are more than happy, of course, to have Professor Nikolai Megitz, a young full professor from St. Louis University, Missouri, USA. He is also a visiting professor from University of Johannesburg, South Africa. Professor Daniel F. Meyer from University of Johannesburg, South Africa. And then we also have Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati Mohammed from University Technology Mara, Malaysia. And last but not least, Professor Aziz Jafar from Bangor University, United Kingdom, as our keynote speakers for today's conference under the theme Empowering World Optimism and Revitalization Through Scientific Framework. And ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, our thankfulness is also addressed to all fellow participants for your shared commitment in today's conference. Ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda is the speech from the conference chair, Dr. Poni Sukaisi Kurniati, SIP MSI. The screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to our distinguished guests, colleagues, and researchers. I am pleased and honored to welcome you to ICOBEST 2022. This year is the 5th edition of the International Conference on Business, Economics, Social Sciences, and Humanities, ICOBEST 2022. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to the Rector of UNIKOM, Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Edi Suryanto Sugoto MT, and all of the management of UNIKOM, distinguished guests, our honorable keynote speakers, and all bright presenters and participants for joining ICOBEST 2022. I would also like to extend my appreciation to the organizing committee for their tremendous contribution to the conference success. We decided to choose empowering world optimism and revitalization via scientific framework as the theme for this year's conference. We expect that this conference will provide you with the opportunity to share your findings with a worldwide research community and engage discussion regarding issues related to research and or practice in the field of business, economics, social sciences, and humanities. The conference agenda will feature a variety of presenting formats, including keynote speakers and oral presentation. In addition, the best papers will have the opportunity to be published in an international journal indexed by Scopus. Our warmest appreciation goes to all the participants who submit their papers. In closing, I encourage the delegates to actively participate in today's interesting discussion. We sincerely hope that this international conference can become a platform for researchers and academics to present their best research results and become a guide for practitioners in the fields of business, economics, social sciences, and humanities. I wish everyone a successful and fruitful conference. Thank you. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next agenda is the opening speech and conference official inauguration to be delivered by Dean of Faculty of Humanities, Associate Professor Dr. Sony Mulyawan Setian, MPD. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, Rahayu. Good morning, dear colleagues, professors, lecturers, researchers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Universitas Komputer Indonesia, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and welcome you to the 5th International Conference on Business, Economics, Social Sciences, and Humanities, ICOBEST 2022. Moreover, I honorably welcome our keynote and invited speaker, Professor Dr. Farida Haji Hassan, Dr. Nikolai Megits, Professor Daniel F. Meyer, Associate Professor Dr. Aiman Melisovna Kazibayeva, Professor Kostyenka Dumansik, Dr. Nungki Haryati SSMA, Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati Mohammed, and Professor Aziz Jafar. The 5th ICOBEST 2022 is hosted by Universitas Komputer Indonesia. It's an online format by taking empowering word optimism and revitalization through scientific framework as the main theme. The theme is taken as the major lesson from the COVID-19 pandemic that we all need to work together to solve big problems by conducting cooperation and collaboration. Although the pandemic is still influencing many things, at the same time, it is stimulating many opportunities. The explosion of digital innovation and technology has brought opportunities to empower and improve productivity in all fields, accelerate business growth, build a far more resilient economy, and create solutions that benefit society. I hope that the 5th ICOBEST 2022 would be able to achieve its objective of providing an effective forum for academicians, researchers, scholars, and practitioners to exchange information and share experiences and research results about the latest innovations, trends, and practical issues to various communities around the world, to increasing optimism and revitalizing the scientific framework. Last but not least, my deepest gratitude goes to the Rector Universitas Komputer Indonesia, Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Edi Suryanto Sugoto MT, Advisory Board, Organizing Committee, International Scientific Committee, institutions, companies, and volunteers who have directly and indirectly supported the success of this seminar. On behalf of Universitas Komputer Indonesia, we sincerely apologize if any inconvenience occurred before, during, or after the event. I wish you a very productive conference with interesting discussion and knowledge exchange so that together we can anticipate the future groundbreaking knowledge, research, and technology for humanities. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful, I declare that the 5th ICOBEST 2022, with the theme empowering with optimism and revitalization through scientific framework, is officially opened. May God bless all of us with good health to make this event a successful and enjoyable one. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the smooth running of the conference, we are going to have a prayer recitation to be conducted by Muhammad Arya Rajasa. The screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, let us pray according to our own belief. And please allow me to guide this prayer according to Islamic belief. A'udzu billahi minas syaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. Ya Rabbana, lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wasikal karim wa azimi sultanik. Walakal hamdu bil Islam, walakal hamdu bil iman, walakal hamdu bil Quran, walakal hamdu bil qiyam, walakal hamdu bil khusyu'. Ya Rabbana, lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wasikal karim wa azimi sultanik. Oh Allah, all praise to you for all the blessing and guidance you gave us so we can attend and carry out this international conference ICOBEST 2022. Oh Allah, please make this conference as worthy conference in order to increase our knowledge and scientific insight, to increase our brotherhood, to increase our motivate, and to increase our motivate to be consistent in the way of your truth. Oh Allah, please give us health, strength, and ability so we can carry out the duty and responsibility given to us. Oh Allah, Ya Rahman, you are the most merciful. Please forgive our sins. Please forgive our parents, our teacher, our leaders, and please forgive all of the Muslims. Please fill our heart with your love, and please make us worthy for your Jannah. Oh Allah, and with the knowledge you give us, please provide us the ability to help the poor, and the needy people. You are our God. None is worthy of worship but you. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka antas samiul alim wa tub alaina innaka antat tawwabur rahim. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azabannar wa qina azabannar wa qina azabannar wa adkhilnal jannata mal abrar ya azizu ya ghaffar ya rabbal alamin. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are one step closer to the main agenda, but before moving on to that, we are going to have a documentation session. So I would like to invite all the participants in a Zoom photo session to humbly turn on the camera, please. We are going to have photo sessions. Okay. I'm still waiting for another participants to open the camera. Okay, we are going to have two poses for today's. The first is the strong pose, ladies and gentlemen. Please be kind. Strong, yeah, we are getting stronger to the next ICOBEST, of course. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and the second pose is the UNIKOM pose. Okay, okay, you. Okay, 1, 2, 3. It's actually switched to this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are moving on to the main agenda, the plenary session from our distinguished keynote speakers. This session will be chaired by my colleague, Andreas Darmayadi, PhD. But before that, I'm going to read out his short CV. Okay, he earned his PhD degree in 2014 at University Utara Malaysia. He's a senior lecturer in International Relations Department in UNIKOM. He serves as Director of Student Affairs in UNIKOM since 2018. He's also a member of the editorial board for the Journal of Global and Political Studies since 2015. He has been involved in many professional and community services since 2000. And he also regularly publishes research in national and international publications. I'm going to hand out this agenda to my distinguished colleague, Dr. Andreas Darmayadi, PhD. The floor is yours, sir. Please.
Thank you very much, Pak Tonton. It's very bright Monday, so we hope with the Monday spirit, all keynote speakers and all participants will enjoy our conference today.
Absolutely.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, Sampurasun.
Yes.
Respectable rectors, vice rectors, and the deans, all participants, distinguished keynote speakers, and of course, my dear colleagues and friends, and of course, the audience following this conference from YouTube. My name is Andreas Darmayadi, and I will be your moderator for the next almost 3 hours. And once again, it's my honor to welcome you all to the 5th International Conference on Business, Economics, Social Sciences on Humanities, ICOBEST 2022. Today, actually, we have 3 outstanding keynote speakers who will share their expert opinion about our topic today, which is the topic is empowering world optimism and revitalization through scientific framework. And we are more than happy to having Professor Dr. Nikolai Megits from St. Louis University, United States, and then Associate Professor Dr. Nur Hayati bin Mohammed from University Teknologi Mara, and last but not least, Professor Aziz Jafar from Bangor University, United Kingdom. Actually, we plan to have 4 keynote speakers for today, but unfortunately, Professor Daniel Mayer cannot join with us for today because he is currently sick. We pray to Prof. Mayer given recovery from his illness. And before we begin these plenary sessions, please allow me a little bit explain about the rules of this plenary. we have a totally 2 hours and 15 minutes in this plenary. So each keynote speakers have 30 to 35 minutes at most to deliver the presentations. And after that, we have 60 minutes to Q&A sessions. And I just want to remind all the participants, during the presentations of the keynote speaker, you have any question, suggestion, or opinion, please write down your question, suggestion, or opinion in the Google form link that's already provided by the committee. And we will discuss this in Q&A sessions. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I would like to invite to the first keynote speaker for today, Professor Dr. Nikolai Megit. Hello, Professor Megit.
Yes, thank you for invitation. Thank you.
How are you?
One second, please. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, with
Okay.
so clear of your voice.
Okay, I'm just give me 1 second, please, to share my screen.
Yeah, before that, I would like to read your briefly curriculum vitae, Prof. Megit. Yes.
Please. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Prof. Megit is always very great, and is always look stunning. Yeah? Professor Dr. Nikolai Megit is an expert in global economics, FDI in emerging markets, and entrepreneurship, with a distinguished record of academic achievement in lecturing and scholarly research. He boasts over 25 years of international business experience, including strategic planning, sales, and import-export practice. Professor Megit received his MBA from Augsburg University in Minneapolis and earned a doctorate in economics from Universitas Ukrainensis in Munich, Germany. He is associated with the Office of International Trade of the Minnesota state government, where he managed the state's economic cooperation with the countries of Eurasia. As an educator, Dr. Megit, as an adjunct professor, taught numerous international business courses at various universities around the globe. Currently, he teaches at Webster University School of Business and Technology in St. Louis, Minnesota, USA, and is visiting professor at the University of Johannesburg, South Africa. In 2021, Dr. Megit completed the Fulbright program at the University of Zagreb, Croatia. Dr. Megit founded, owned, and operated several successful startup enterprises during his business career. He established the Institute of Eastern Europe and Central Asia and launched the Journal of Eastern European and Central Asian Research. Dr. Megit is an academic of the Ukrainian Academy of Economic Science and member of the U.S. Academy of International Business. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your full attention to Professor Megit. Professor Megit, time is yours.
Yep. Please allow me to share my screen. And if you can allow me to share screen, that would help. Okay. Yeah, excellent. Start sharing, and we are here.
We already see.
Do you see my screen?
Yes. We already
Okay.
see.
Excellent. Thank you, conference organizer, for providing an opportunity to share my view on geopolitical situation due to the COVID and Russian war. Time goes very fast. I remember last year, approximately at this time, we were talking at this conference on entrepreneurship spirit and what does it take to start a business for entrepreneurs. Year later, due to the COVID, unfortunately, a year later, we're still talking about the COVID. And we are adding at this time another issue, but this time we're talking about the issue of Russian war in Eastern Europe. And the theme of your conference, optimism and revitalization, this is a perfect theme due to this situation that the world is experiencing today, COVID multiplied by the war. Unfortunately, I understand that for many of you, war is far away from you, and this is Eastern Europe. However, it's affecting everyone, including your personally, and your country, and your region as Southeast Asia in general. What we are seeing, what is happening today. I'm talking to you from Northern America, state of Minnesota, but I'm just as a global person, as many of you are, I'm operating in various places in Europe, in South Africa, and today we are talking in Southeast Asia. And this presentation is based on my academic research and professional experience in regards to these challenges that the world is facing today. Currently, world is dealing with the two major catastrophes, COVID and full scale of war. Many of us are questioning, did COVID ended globalization? Or how COVID affects the globalization? And there is a different view on this situation. On one hand, for example, Adam Tooze, who is a professor of Columbia University and director of European Institute, he is saying the death of globalization has been announced many times, but this is a perfect storm, nothing more. He doesn't believe that the end of globalization is coming. On opposite hand, another reporter of an analyst, Kenneth Raposa, who writes for Forbes magazine and covering business, finance, and some geopolitical issues regarding Brazil, Russia, India, and China, he is saying the post-coronavirus world may be the end of globalization. See, this represents two opposite views. And in between, I will argue personally that globalization could not end with the COVID impacts. Yes, definitely, COVID has a terrible impact on supply chain, production around the globe. In addition, complicating many health issues for people and has a huge impact on social economic activities. Many businesses still are affected. And each day, unfortunately, brings more COVID cases, and millions of people in China still today are in a lockdown situation as we speak. The world, which has become increasingly complex since the end of the Second World War, with the push of American globalization, definitely cannot be destroyed overnight, even in this case of globalization. We, as a people, are resilient and adaptable. If we look on a map that you see in front of yourself, today we are on the third year of coronavirus pandemic. More than 500 million people have been infected, and the virus had killed more than 6 million people globally. As you can see, new type of viruses have led new waves of cases, despite of new vaccine, new drugs, and improve of care, health conditions around the globe, people still getting sick. And people, company, businesses, nations still are dealing with this. Yes, today we are talking less and less about this, but million people died in the United States, Brazil, India, Russia. It's also affected Indonesia, your country, your home country. As you can see, over 6 million people got infected, 150,000 more died. In other countries like US, we have even more severe casualties, cases, over 1 million people vanished. And this has strong effect on globalization, on economics in the world. Now, as I mentioned, we are experiencing two challenges at this time, COVID and war. Many are asking, are we at the beginning of this challenging that due to the Putin's war, it's more threatening us than a COVID? People, unfortunately, suffering from the both. After the 33 years of COVID, today, Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine, which begins just recently on February 23, has radically altered the geopolitical scheme with evidence of economic effects. Yes, COVID significantly changed the global manufacturing supply chain, and now 3 months into the Russian war, enormous economic sanctions have impacted global output, not just on Russia. Yes, sanctions are on Russia, but who is paying the price? We all are paying the price of this. Yes, COVID-19 shocked many countries who were all troubled before the pandemic. On this slide, I pose a question. Are we seeing the beginning of Third World War? Yes, we were devastated, and we studied in the school, and people who live in Europe has much more experience of World War II. And today, despite the fact that war is just between two countries, Russia and Ukraine, dozens and dozens of countries are involved in this. Some countries supply ammunition, some supply food, some are affected by shortage of the food. Russian forces, unfortunately, not only killing and raping Ukrainian women and the children, but they are killing cows, they're stealing and destroying ag equipment in Ukraine. Ukraine already had 2 years of production lost on agricultural fields. There is experience of food shortage. It became a Russian weapon. Ukraine is powerhouse of food around the globe, and unfortunately, it is destroyed. As I mentioned before, even if Russia is under over 8,000 sanctions just from the United States, in addition to European Union sanctions, in addition to separate country sanctions, this is a huge price for everyone. In this case, we can say there is no longer a free market of Russian currency that is called ruble. It's all regulated now by Russian government. Circulation of dollars and payment of by dollars or euros in doing business with Russia is forbidden. And it's always done just not to simply to punish Russia, but to deal with the Russian aggression and push Russia to end the war. Yes, withdrawal of Western companies from Russia has divested effect. American, European, and Indonesian and Chinese companies are paying price for this. We're losing businesses, but what to do? 90% of Ukrainian grain is imported through Black Sea ports. And some of you probably already read that Ukraine is not allowed to operate through Black Sea ports, Odessa, Mariupol. There is mines flying, no other country's ships allowed to come. And unfortunately, Russia is using this situation, trying to use into its own advantage. Russian government just recently said to Europe, said, yes, we will allow Ukrainian grain that is sitting in the Ukrainian ports to be delivered to the world only in a case if sanctions will be lifted, but most likely it's not going to happen. It's important to realize that Ukraine is #1 in the world of sunflower oil export. Ukraine supplies 51% of all world oil, more than half. Think this, more than half oil is exported from Ukraine. And 20% of sunflower fields are occupied today, and export capability is limited. I'm not sure how many of you heard about the issue of baby formula, baby food shortage in the United States, in other countries, but it's partially due to the lack of sunflower oil that been imported from the United States and other countries from Ukraine. Okay, let's look on this situation. The reason for the war, why Russia started the war. As I noted here, it's three, you see 3 bullet points: energy, food, and politics. Yes, Russia, through the Nord Stream 2 new gas pipe that is built recently, but never finished. It's done 99% and it's frozen now, from Russia to Germany. And it's under sanction today because Russia wanted to avoid the control of Ukraine over all the supplies that goes from Russia to Europe through the Ukrainian territory. And if you look on this map, on the right column on the chart, you see dependency of European countries on the Russia energy supply, in our case, gas supply. You see that countries like Estonia, Finland, Moldova, Macedonia have 100% dependency on Russian gas, and tell them you have to put sanctions and embargo on Russian gas and stop using it. It's a harsh, very harsh and difficult for them to find how to replace the situation. And another factor that the reasons why war started was the food. We talk about this, we'll talk more about this, and politics. Unfortunately, politics play a huge role in this situation because as a factor of corruption, especially in the European, in the German politicians, when a former Chancellor of Germany, Gerhard Schröder, was appointed as an executive director of chairman of the Nord Stream pipe, and with a huge bribe from Russia. And this. Another is a politics, as I mentioned. On the left side, you see this map, all the key oil and gas pipes that goes from Russia through Ukraine in the yellow to Europe. And this is why Russia decided to build this one single Nord Stream pipe to replace all this, to avoid pushing its natural resources through Ukraine. Another factor was the Russian language, because the Ukraine on the east side, you see in a dark brown color, this is eastern part on the border with Russia, where historically many people were speaking Russian language. And now we see the situation when this territory is currently occupied partially by Russian military, being destroyed. Here is Mariupol, here is the Kharkiv, and Donbass, Luhansk. And those are people who, despite the promise of Putin to liberate them from Ukrainian, he called it nationalists, to liberate the Russia, here's the people who is paying a huge price of being destroyed of their infrastructure, buildings, and bombardment of school, etc. Yes, as you see, Ukraine is paying a big price for this, and not only Ukraine. Europe sent Russia around $22 billion for the oil price, because we want to stop, to put embargo and stop trade with Russia. Unfortunately, no one is ready to end this trade and oil energy supply, and countries still paying Russia. What we see on those two charts, the Russian is paying price as well, and they are willing to take the sacrifice. If you look on the value of Russian ruble, just in a short period of time, in 2 years, it went down from 30 rubles to dollar. Now it's devaluated to 100 rubles and still falling down, 100 rubles to dollars. Russia is losing a lot, However, due, as shown on the right side of a chart, due to the high price, increased price of oil per barrel, because there's a limited demand, price goes, not demand, supply, price goes up in a limited supply. Now, is Russia still is making as much money as we were making before, because of the oil and gas price is rising up significantly. World is not willing to take, trying to do something, especially Ukrainian President, Mr. Vladimir Zelensky, constantly speaks. Here you see his speech to the United Nations Assembly. Almost every single day he appeals to nations, countries, organizations, asking for help and asking for a world to help Ukraine to stop Russian war. Same time, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that the conflict may be spreading far beyond Ukraine, causing, as he called, a hurricane of hunger and meltdown of the global food system. Russia and Ukraine are bread baskets for the world. Yes, accounting together for 30% of global wheat export. Just think about this. 30%, 1/3 of all wheat export, every bread, 30% bread that is baked around the globe comes from Russian and Ukrainian wheats. Prices of food, because of the war, already risen. Same is about the cooking oil. United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization says that number of hungry people could increase by 8 to 13 million, taking into consideration that already 1.6 billion people are experiencing hunger. This chart that you see in front of yourself is a kind of summary. This is what I just said. Did Russia war in Ukraine cause world food supply? Look on dependence of many countries on supply of the wheat from Ukraine and Russia and combined export of wheat. You see countries like Turkey, 75% dependency just on the supply of food from Russia and Ukraine. This answers the question why Turkey president is still very friendly with Putin. Egypt, 70% dependency on the supply from Russia and Ukraine. And even Indonesia, our lovely, friendly country, Indonesia, I'm not sure how many of you knew that 26% of wheat comes from Ukraine and 3% from Russia. And in the last column, you see is a column called lack money for food. In your country, 35% of funds are spent on food to feed your people, your population. In other countries like Philippines and Kenya and even Nigeria, it's close to 70% altogether. In addition, Ukraine is a leading producer of fertilizer that comes from Eastern region, the region that is country under war, active war, and with the plant being destroyed and port closed, it creates worldwide problem. Most likely due to the shortage of fertilizers. Farmers will see this problem in the next year. Here's another example of what is happening in the world today, how people are paying a price for this. As I just mentioned, Ukraine was the second largest supplier of food to the United Nations World Food Program during 2025. Who is going to fill now this gap? Who will become a second biggest supplier? It's a huge question. On this slide, I wanted to show a ratio between Ukraine and Russia depends on a commodity category. Wheat, barley, sunflower seeds, and where does this come from for the world? And if you can see the wheat, 25%, not 25, 30% of wheat, as mentioned before, is the display comes from Russia/Ukraine farmers. Yes, they compete, Russia and Ukraine, for the global market. And that is another reason for the war. Russia wants to push Ukrainian ag sector out of the world global map. But what is a world reaction and action in this situation? What the world leaders are doing? President Biden, as you probably read, just signed recently, and US Parliament voted on the highest $50 billion program support of Ukrainian economy. No one, non-single nation in the world get ever help from United States in the $50 billion. This is annual budget of Ukraine, just arrived from United States. In addition to Great Britain, to European Union, we are getting not only monetary support, there is a coming military, and this is actually what is a way how to stabilize and stop Russian invasion toward Ukraine, completely overtaking Ukraine as a nation. However, Putin is getting his friends as well. In Eastern Europe, we have old Europe, in the countries of Germany, France, and Italy. They're very cautious in providing support to Ukraine, and still have a hope to negotiate with Putin. And unfortunately, they are trying to leverage Ukrainian territory and pushing Ukraine to allow Putin to take more and more land from Ukraine. This whole situation, not COVID, but the war, caused that recently over 6 to 8 million people left Ukraine and spread all around Europe. Some of them left to as far as Southeast Asia countries to look for refuge, for their new places to escape the Russian aggression. You saw those pictures when buildings were destroyed, with hospital destroyed, children's schools were killed, etc. And Poland and Bulgaria stopped buying Russian gas. Hungary and Serbia, unfortunately, with European Union, still are evaluating what can be done in the case with Russia. Where is, as I mentioned, Ukraine found a huge support in dealing with war with Russia and the West. But where is the Russian friends? Where is the Russia is looking for help? And their helpers are in Asia, countries like China and India. Despite the fact that China is not completely signing to help Putin, however, they just decided to stay on the side to see what's happening, how the world will develop. They are afraid to be full-scale partner of Russia in their war because they try to avoid the sanctions that most likely they will be punished if they start doing business with Russia on full scale. Just recently, a few days ago, it was announced that China stopped accepting Russian planes arriving from Russia for one single reason, because what's happened with the Russian airlines, they expropriated all the Boeings and Boeing airplanes and started using, actually they stalled all those foreign airplanes and started using them. Let's look into this in your region. What is happening in your region specifically? Even if Southeast Asian countries have few direct economic links to Russia and Ukraine, the conflict is already causing various commodity prices moving up, especially oil, nickel, wheat, and corn. This is particularly concerning Thailand, Vietnam, and Singapore, countries that are completely depending on import from Russia and Ukraine. Overall, Russia and Ukraine are minor economic players in Southeast Asia. The biggest economics impact overall on the people who live in Southeast Asia will likely be on inflation caused due to rapid rise of oil price. I just mentioned China, and you can see that China has its own interests here with this so-called 9-dash line. And this is next to your border. And one of the reasons that China is observing what Russia is gonna achieve in Eastern Europe. This is, we call it the great powers. Russia is one great power, United States is another great power, and now China is a great power in your region. And they saying this, hey, if Russia has a right to some territories in Eastern Europe that they claim their own interest, why China would not claim the territory of South China Sea as their territory of your interest? If Russia can do this, why China can't? This is how relationship between Russia and Ukraine look today. This is a picture of Foreign Minister of Russia, Lavrov, and Foreign Secretary of Blinken. They are moving completely in opposite direction. There is no negotiation, no discussion today between Lavrov or Russia, in this case, and the United States. People are evaluating risks. And risks question, one key question is, what people are main concern? Definitely geopolitical instability, as you can see in the left column. Geopolitical instability is now cited as a top risk to growth in correspondent countries. COVID-19 is not in the mind of people as much as a geopolitical instability today. Similar to this chart, you can see that people are, when evaluating both situation, what is it better in a global economy, stability versus domestic situation? They definitely are very concerned about the global economy instability, what's happening. And what caused this? I just displayed a couple pictures for you to observe. This is how global politics looks today. You have on one side Mr. Putin, and this is a kind of joke, long table leaders of other countries. On one hand, you see Macron, president of France. Below, you see the Scholz, the chancellor of Germany. Even with the local politicians, his own cabinet, Putin completely distanced himself. This is how challenging it is to negotiate, to have a business with him due to this situation, because of distancing. This is not a COVID. This is insecurity of President Putin to his foreign colleagues and his own cabinet. Looking at this situation, what we see today, because we talk about 2021, 2022, this is the latest 2021 Global Hunger Index. Who is suffering because of this? Which regions? And now I'm just trying to project this due to the war, 2022. Just imagine how this yellow territory will look now. It will be not a yellow, it probably will be brown in majority of this, because of this situation, shortage of food that caused by war that we just discussed. And in conclusion, I would like to bring to you to your thinking one important point, that US, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, they really fulfill the loss of food. Those countries, superpower in food supply, they will not the world to be hungry. they will step in. But who will be the loser in this situation? Definitely Ukraine and Russia. And talking about the shift, because my presentation is about the shift of globalization. Instead of globalization, we will see the power moving to regional organization, the rise of ultra-nationalism. Unfortunately, humanity is left to pay a huge price. And in my opinion, I hope that November 15, 16, 22 G20 summit that will be held in Bali, Indonesia, in your home country, will address at least some of the global economic and geopolitical challenges. I hope that by that time, war will end and Putin will be invited, because today, despite the fact that he is invited by your president, he is still not welcomed by a majority of countries at the G20 summit. And for this reason, I would like to thank you. To close my presentation, I hope you found it interesting and not too boring with my slides, and I'm open to questions if you may have. Thank you again for UNIKOM and Conference Committee for allowing me to present my topic to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Megitz. It's very interesting presentations and very tempting to discuss, but we have to be patient to discuss it. And we're going to the second, our second presenter, the speaker today is Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati bin Muhammad from Universitas Teknologi Mara. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Nurhayati.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How are you?
Okay, good.
I'm sure that you're in Jakarta today, right?
Yes, I am. Closer.
Closer, yeah. Just 2 hours, Dr. Nurhayati.
Yes.
Okay, before Dr. Nurhayati deliver the presentations, allow me to read her brief curriculum vitae. Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati Muhammad is currently the Deputy Director, Postgraduate and Innovations of the Accounting Research Institute, a National Higher Institute Center of Excellence. She has researched and produced writing on strategic planning, corporate governance, financial reporting, and dividends. She was also involved in many research relating to the public universities in Malaysia, such as analyzing the performance of public universities in Malaysia, university holding companies and their subsidiaries, and financial performance and development of the new funding model for public universities. She was also the head task force for the committee to study the education policy of Malaysia, an appointment by the Minister of Education. She was one of the key figures in spearheading to development and monitoring of 2 long-term strategic planning documents for UITM, covering the periods 2006 until 2010 and 2011 and 2015, and was seconded to the Ministry of Higher Education to hold a position as a Director of Program Management Office, PMO, from the years 2013 to 2018. Her office played a leading role in overseeing the development of Malaysia Education Blueprint 2015 to 2025 higher educations and monitoring the blueprint's implementations. Ladies and gentlemen, give warm welcome to Professor Dr. Nurhayati bin Muhammad. Dr. Nurhayati, time is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Andreas. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. And a very good morning here to the rectors, deputy rectors, the vice rectors, other keynote speakers, and also all participants. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for inviting me to this auspicious session to this conference to share a little bit about my reading and something that my institute, Accounting Research Institute, our focus, which is financial criminology, and I would like to touch on corruption. Yeah. So before I begin and sharing, let me test the screen sharing first. But so far, may I know if everybody can hear me well?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, all right. Okay. Right, may I know if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
All right, okay, thank you. So I'm looking at, because we're talking about revitalizing optimism. So using, a scientific framework. So what I'm touching upon is trying to gain the optimism against the fight against corruption. So we hope that with the use of digital technology and specifically ICT, information communication technology, how countries, and the world can actually help to reduce corruption. So we still have that optimism in us, to actually try to fight this. And what I'm going to do today is actually share a study or a research which is quite recent from 2021. I chose that because the study was quite comprehensive and it allows or it touches quite a wide area. And I think by discussing this article, it will help probably the participants here who may be many who are researchers, postgraduate students, or even lecturers. That's something that we can look at and maybe expand our research. All right, so very briefly, corruption, it has been defined as the abuse of public power for private gain, and this was given by Transparency International, and also acts in which the power of public officials is used for personal gains in a manner that contravenes the rules of the game. So basically, I'm sharing here also, this is a list that was prepared by Transparency National. It is actually a list of the top 25 corruption scandals that rock the world. Yeah, and I'm showing the top 10 from of the list, and it is sad to say that my country, Malaysia, the case of the 1MDB is up there in the top 10. So it is a huge case, and it's still going on in terms of trying to get the court case against the perpetrators in Malaysia. But in the US, the court case quite settled. So it is a very a big case and known worldwide. So this is something that we are not proud of, but is there on the list, top 10, yeah? Just to look at where we are in terms of the perception index, yeah, corruption perception index. CPI here is not consumer product, but it's corruption perception index. So basically, it's the perception of people, yeah, levels of people on the public sector corruption, basically. So we have what is called the score here. So the score is you want to try and get as high a score as possible out of 100. Yeah, so basically the average last year was 43 out of 100. So not really a pass, yeah. But in Malaysia here, not really a pass as well. It's a 48 over 100, the score. And then we have the ranking. So in terms of the ranking, we want to, again, rank number 62, because if the rank is 0, in terms of the score, if the score is 0, it's highly corrupt, and if the score is 100, it's very clean. Yeah, so we want to have a high score as possible. So when you have a high score, then of course you will rank high. But if not, out of 180 countries like Malaysia, the ranking is number 62. So if you were to look at the score again, so we want to have a good score. For Malaysia, the score has like almost, there were not that many changes, except in 2014, there was a slight increase. So we did gain some increase there, above 50. And and then it started to go down. It went down throughout until 2018. There was a spike in 2019. So obviously that was as a result of our election, in 2018, when the ruling government actually was toppled down and the opposition took over. And I think people were very optimistic then. And the perception of corruption perception index, and the score actually went very high in 2019. But again, the political situation in Malaysia, has been quite unstable the past 2 years, and this is the perception index also reflect that. I think it's quite closely related to the political situation in Malaysia. So the score has started to go down again. And in Indonesia, I'm just sharing, so the score in Indonesia has been going up, from 2012, the trend is going up. Even though like Malaysia, the score is higher, but the trend is like going down. So that is, I think, as a citizen, I myself am concerned about that, But in Indonesia, the trend is going up. There's a slight dip in 2020, and then it's going up again in 2021. So to me, the trend, perception index is if the trend shows that it's going up, I think it's something that it is an optimistic happening. Right. So we are optimistic. We want to try and fight this corruption. And ICT, and not only in Malaysia, but also around the world, ICT has been promoted as one of the key tools to fight against administrative corruption in general and corruption in the public service delivery in particular. However, many digital tools or ICT tools have not been performing well in practice, and not everything worked. So studies have found that the reason for this is because of the non-alignment with the form of corruption. So because there are different forms of corruption, so therefore the ICT tool that were used or that was used may not be able to curb the corruption that is happening because of this mismatch between the tools and the form of corruption that's happening. And so that become an area of research as well, to see the effectiveness of the ICT tool in actually fighting corruption. So the studies have found that this is because if it doesn't work, it is because of mismatch. So this article, I come across this article, And I think it is a comprehensive article which will actually help researchers to further study ICT tools, using ICT tools to combat or to curb corruption. Yeah. So the title of the article is "Are Emerging Technologies Helping Win the Fight Against Corruption?" So it is a comprehensive review of all the articles that discuss ICT, using ICT to combat or to fight corruption. So they look at all these articles and they only let go of low quality articles. So the rest, they do it and they analyze the application of it. So what ICT tool that works and what doesn't work. So their main, and this article was by Isabel Adama and I don't know, probably I'm not pronouncing this name correctly, Mikhail Fazikas, from the Journal of Information Economics and Policy, 57. So their main question were, what are the main applications of ICT tools against corruption? So what are the impacts of ICT tools, whether are they positive or negative, both positive and negative? And what are the facilitating and limiting factors of ICT-based anti-corruption tools? So to better understand the impact of ICT on corruption, these are the two main categories, classification of corruption, where we have what is called a petty corruption, and the other one would be the grand corruption. So when we look at petty corruption, this is actually corruption at the implementation end of public administration. So this would involve the payment of comparatively small amounts of money to facilitate official transactions. So it's called petty corruption, but it occurs very often. And sometimes people have accepted that as part of doing business, and just paying small amounts of money to hasten their, maybe their order or their proposal and so on and so forth. So this is a petty corruption. Now the other one, the grand corruption, is the abuse of high-level power that benefits the few at the expense of the many and causes serious and widespread harm to individuals and society and pervades the highest levels of government. So the name reflects that, that it's a grand corruption. It's not merely small amounts of money to, given to official, but this is abuse of high-level power, and the benefit to the few is so obvious, right? And from academic point of view, to understand that that two classification of corruption, one theory that explains the petty corruption actually is the agency theory, which actually explains the agency relationship. And from agency relationship, of course, we will have this agency problem, because under agency theory, we have the principal-agent relationship, and the assumption is that the agent will act on the best, on behalf of the principal, and to give the best outcome, and to do their best on behalf of the principal. But that doesn't actually happen all the time. So then we have this agency problem. So in this situation, when we talk about corruption, the principal would be the citizens. So we are part of the citizens, we are the principal. So the officials, the government officials would be the agent. and they possess asymmetric information, and they have the discretion on the distribution of resources. So that will in itself allow or give room for corruption, because they have because of this asymmetric information. So under agency theory, it's always that asymmetric information. And these officials, they have the discretion for the distribution of resources. So consequently, if we want to fight corruption at this end, so the strategies would be focusing on decreasing the discretionary power of the government officials and establishing better oversight and accountability mechanism. So that would be the strategy. And this is actually what we call the petty corruption. So most of the ICT-enabled tools that were examined are in this category. So a lot of, when in this study, when they look at all the articles under ICT tools to fight corruption, so many of the ICT tools that were being implemented in countries, in fact, in organization, are all aimed to curb petty corruption. So not much on that grand corruption. Therefore, a lot of those ICT tools were to improve oversight and accountability. So to explain that grand corruption is that the theory to explain it is that corruption is looked at as a collective action problem, because there is no principle. We don't have that citizens as the principled principle, but rather we have different groups of actors. We have the government, the private sector, the civil society, and they cannot organize for collective interest, because each of this group has they have their own self-interest. So therefore, because of that, there's no collective interest to strive for the best. Each has their own self-interest. Therefore, the society as a whole remains corrupt. So this is we call corruption as collective action problem, and it is often associated with grand corruption. So therefore, the grand corruption is perpetrated by corrupt leaders who control state institutions to expropriate the state's wealth with impunity. It's so difficult to actually punish these leaders. And corrupt leaders, again, can be the leaders of a whole country, or they can be local politicians, such as the mayors, key institution leaders, such as a head of a public electricity utility. So grand corruption is inherently difficult to fight. Because even with the help of ICT, since the corrupt elites, they themselves sometimes are the ones that design and control the system that is supposed to combat or fight corruption. So that is why this grand corruption is difficult to actually fight it with ICT, or even if what has been when countries or organizations has tried to develop the ICT tool, it has been difficult. So in this study, what the next step that they tried to do was they tried to categorize what are the ICT tools that have been developed, by countries or by organizations to fight corruption, either petty corruption or grand corruption. So they organize it into 6 categories of ICT tool. the types of ICT tool. So the first one would be all the digital public services or e-government, such as the web-enabled devices or electronic data management system that are meant to provide public services to citizens. Yeah. And then they have another set of ICT tools that are actually developed for anti-corruption crowdsourcing platform, which actually allows citizens to publicly report. So the crowdfunding is to attract public report on petty corruption incidences. Yes, so either via the internet or telephone. So countries or organizations have done this, to capture petty reporting on petty corruption. And then there's another set of ICT tool, which is actually whistleblowing tools designed for gathering detailed reports of individual cases of grand corruption with the aim of supporting criminal prosecution. Yeah, so that's another set of ICT tool where people have done studies on those tools. The fourth one would be transparency portals. These would be online platforms run by governments or NGOs that publish information on government operations. Yeah, so this organization publish all information to encourage transparency, yeah, and accountability. The next category of ICT tools were distributed ledger technologies, such as blockchain, that represent a decentralized and synchronized database maintained by a peer-to-peer network. So where each user holds a copy of the data. Yeah? So this is to protect the data and to allow for things like cryptocurrency and so on and so forth. And then last but not least would be the AI technologies. Yeah? These are all the artificial intelligence, as we know, the use of facial recognition, the use of all sorts of technologies, yeah, the AI technologies. So these are the 6 categories that the researchers have actually put together when they have studied all the articles about ICT technology to combat corruption, and they have categorized all these technologies or ICT tools into these 6 categories. And they analyze the next step that they do is looking at the channel in terms of when we talk about the flow of corruption. Is it from government to the citizen, or is it from citizen to the government, or is it between 2 organizations? Yeah. So what is the impact of using ICT tools on this flow of information and so on and so forth? So ICT, as we know, can aid the fight against corruption by, number 1, it can reduce information asymmetries, facilitate collective action, because just now we were saying that all this group of people are going for self-interest, yeah, but with ICT, it can help that collective process. And of course, automating, standardizing government processes, limiting public officials' discretion, reducing red tape, and increasing the likelihood of punishment. For example, the ICT tool, just now we talked about, crowdfunding, and also before this, the whistleblowing tools, yeah? So ICT also facilitate the information flow between government and citizens, across government institutions, and among societal actors, that will foster transparency, vertical and also horizontal accountability, and citizen participation. So ICT tools will be able to do this and therefore help fight corruption. Okay, and however, on the other hand, okay, having ICT, it can also actually enhance corruption. So that's the trouble or the problem as well, yeah? Because with ICT, actually, it can introduce new opportunities for concealing wrongdoing and conducting corrupt exchanges. It means that it provides another avenue or probably another level of corruption. Yeah, and ICT can actually introduce new layers of complexity, making it easier to hide corrupt acts, create databases and administrative systems that can be hacked or manipulated easier. So, you know, we always hear about a scam, you know, so that is a scam, but corruption, we talk about people trying to scam one another as well, you know, officials trying to scam the public and so on and so forth. So actually ICT has make it easier, and maybe the amount could be bigger. Yeah. And when we talk about reducing information asymmetry, usually it's good, but there is also the dark side of it, where ICT can reduce the information asymmetry for those seeking details about relevant officials to bribe, the amount to bribe, and the process of bribe paying, making bribery market operate more efficiently. So that could happen, yeah. And then ICT also can enable a global web of corruption. It becomes global, bigger, yeah, making law enforcement that is usually and largely nationally bound very ineffective, yeah, because we have a global web. All right. In fact, when we talk about, you know, 1MDB Malaysia, you know, the court case happened in several countries, you know, but sad to say, the law in other countries are actually faster, more effective compared to Malaysia, yeah. All right. So for this research, what they have done further is that when we talk about because of the channel just now, so they look at when they want to analyze which digital tools, how effective they are, and then in which channel. The first channel is the downward transparency, meaning that the impact of ICT on corruption via downward transparency, yeah, as government provide information to citizens. So these are ICT tools that are developed so that in the effort in trying to actually provide information, reduce information asymmetry from the government to the citizen. That is the downward transparency. So that's one channel that they look at in terms of the use of ICT tools. The second channel would be the upward transparency. Yeah, this is the channel where the citizens would be providing information to the government. Yeah, either for the petty corruption, you know, through the crowdfunding just now, or the grand corruption, you know, through the whistleblowing activity. Yeah, and then the third channel that they look at would be the organization and administrative processes. In other words, the horizontal accountability. And this is how the use of ICT directly intervening in administrative processes, official discretion, and power relations within the government. Okay, and the fourth channel that they look at would be the impact of ICT on the organization and processes within the society in terms of enabling collective action to counter corruption. This ICT tool that have been developed to actually, get that collective action. And this is needed in order to combat the grand corruption. Okay, so they have a long list of findings, and I'm not going to go through each one of that, but as a researcher, the audience in this plenary session, if you are interested in this article is very good. It will become like a starting point, and then what they did was, for each of this channel just now, they assess the individual technology and the tools, and they discuss, they review each of the tool, and they try to find the evidence of the impact on corruption, and they do it in depth. So this will provide a very rich starting point for researchers, and they have also listed down all the articles, almost all the seminal articles that discuss about ICT tools and the fight against corruption. So I would recommend this, and probably I will also take this up and try to make a further research on how ICT tools can be an aid to fight corruption, and probably to reduce also how ICT tool can actually enhance corruption, and how do we actually mitigate that. So that these are the possible areas of research, or maybe a postgraduate study for our audience today. So with that, Dr. Andreas, I end my presentation. So thank you again very much for giving me the opportunity to be in this plenary session. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nurhayati. It's very outstanding presentations. Digital technology fight the corruption. I believe that a lot of questions already entered to our link presentation, our link G form. So we're moving to the third speaker for today, Professor Dr. Aziz Jafar, but unfortunately, Professor Dr. Aziz Jafar cannot join with us for today, but Professor Jafar sending the video presentations. But before the committee show the video presentations, allow me read the brief curriculum vitae of Professor Jafar. Aziz Jafar is a professor of accounting and head of accounting and finance at Bangor Business Schools, Bangor University, Wales, United Kingdom. He has held visiting professorships at National University of Malaysia and Management and Science University, Malaysia. He has more than 25 years experience in tertiary education in UK, China, and Malaysia. His research interests are in the areas of international accounting, financial reporting quality, corporate social responsibility, and tax avoidance. His research work has appeared in many international high-ranked journals such as the Journal of Corporate Finance, Abacus, International Journal of Accounting, British Accounting Review, Journal of Economic Behavior and Organizations, International Review of Financial Analysis, Journal of Financial Service Research, and European Journal of Finance. Professor Jafar is a co-editor-in-chief of Journal of Financial Reporting and Accounting, associate editor of Journal of Islamic Accounting and Business Research, and member of editorial board at Journal of Accounting in Emerging Economies. Prior to joining academic, he has audit and management consultants experience with working with one of international accounting firms. So committee, please show the video presentation of Prof. Jafar. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum and Selamat pagi. Thank you for inviting me to this conference. I am Aziz Jafar. I'm Professor of Accounting and Head of Accounting and Finance at Bangor University Business School here in the UK. The title of my paper is Corporate Social Responsibility and Tax Avoidance, Organized Hypocrisy and Balancing Contradictory Demands. And this paper is co-authored with my colleagues, Abdullah Al-Saadi at Qura University in Saudi Arabia, Professor Shahid Ibrahim at Durham University, and Professor Doris Merkel-Davies, my colleague here at Bangor. So this paper is still work in progress. Any comments and feedback are welcome. Let me start by setting the background. This is a quote from Professor Sika back in 2013. So corporations soothe public anxiety by publishing corporate social responsibility CSR report and by making promises of good citizenship, but this action do not always match their tax practices. So what are the common features in this company on this slide? They portray themselves as champions in CSR and sustainability activities. For example, Starbucks focuses on sustainability by creating slogan, giving more than what we take from the planet. It reduces carbon emission, waste output, and water impact, and helping the community. The same goes with Amazon, Google, and Facebook. However, these are the same company that have been exposed in the media for not paying a fair share of tax. For example, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and so on, they collectively avoided paying an estimated 1.5 billion in tax on their profit in the UK alone in 2019. And the same goes with Amazon. In 2020, the company had sales income of 44 billion euro in Europe, but the company did not pay any corporation tax. And the same story for Facebook and Google. So what is the motivation of our paper? The central idea within this paper is to do with legitimacy. And legitimacy is arguably the most important resource for organizational survival. Companies are deemed to be legitimate if their practices, policies, and performance are congruent with social norms and rules. However, maintaining legitimacy is problematic in the presence of heterogeneous audiences with conflicting demands and expectations. So our main research question is stated here: how do companies or organizations maintain legitimacy in an environment characterized by conflicting demands of diverse group of stakeholders? And basically, these stakeholders can be divided into two general categories: financial stakeholders, or the main shareholders, and the non-financial stakeholders. These include the public and society. So in particular, we focus on the contradictory demands of shareholders for profit maximization, and this is facilitated by tax avoidance. When companies avoid tax, they will directly increase their profit figures, and these profit figures will be distributed, will benefit shareholders. And on the other hand, the non-financial stakeholders, and their demands is for socially responsible corporate behavior, practices, and policies, including paying fair share of tax. So, what is the motivation of our paper? We examine a topical yet controversial issues of CSR and tax avoidance. And by definition, CSR can be broadly viewed as organizational responsibility. This includes economic, legal, moral, and charitable towards societies. And the issue of corporate social responsibilities are more pronounced, are more prevalent in recent years as more and more stakeholders demand accountability and transparency. For example, the recent report by UN Global Compact Essential Strategy CEO studies, they found that 89% of over 1,000 CEO across the world, they are committed to sustainability, and this is translating into real impact in their industry. Now, the other issue that we look at this paper is tax avoidance. And tax avoidance has been defined variously in the literature, but in principle, it's a tax planning scheme which is structured by firm to reduce firm tax obligation. And this activity is perceived by insiders as profit maximizing activities. However, it is viewed by outsider stakeholders as a socially irresponsible act, because by not paying tax, it is costly to society, and it also considered as unethical behavior. So tax payment is considered as a litmus test for CSR engagement and a strong measure of a firm's citizenship. So before I discuss the details, let me briefly outline the main finding of our paper. So the first finding, we document that firms with higher corporate social responsibility engagement are more likely to engage in tax avoidance. In other words, CSR engagement is seen as window dressing activities. And I will explain this further in my subsequent slides. Secondly, country-level corporate governance and financial system, as well as the level of industry risks, these two are important in determining the link between CSR engagement and tax avoidance. In particular, our results show that firms domiciled in liberal market economies, LMEs, are more likely to engage in tax avoidance as compared to those domiciled in coordinated market economies. Furthermore, firms operating in environmentally sensitive industries are more likely to face predicament involving a trade-off between CSR engagement and corporate tax policy. So that are our main results. Now, in terms of contributions, the first contribution made by this paper is a response to calls by prior literature, papers by Hanlon and Eastman 2010, another paper by Sika, and this paper called for critical analysis of the link between CSR engagement and tax avoidance. We also adopt the concept of organized hypocrisy. So what do we mean by organized hypocrisy? This is the inconsistency between socially responsible talk, that is CSR engagement, and action, which is tax avoidance. And in particular, our contributions imply that firms regard CSR as something that can be said but not done, and tax avoidance as something that can be done but not said. And this is the main idea within the organized hypocrisy argument. And our empirical analysis take into consideration institutional factors across different jurisdictions, including the liberal market economies vis-a-vis coordinated market economies. So let's take a look at the theoretical framework. So our main theoretical framework is based on conflicting stakeholders' interests. Remember, I mentioned to you, we have generally two stakeholders, the financial stakeholders, which is shareholders, and non-financial stakeholders, basically the public or the society. Okay? So firm can resolve these conflicting stakeholders' interests by window dressing in the form of organized hypocrisy. And this entails producing socially responsible talk, which is inconsistent with action. Now, organized hypocrisy involves countercoupling. In other words, talk is compensating the actions. And this implies talking the talk, which enable firms to gain pragmatic legitimacy, that is, stakeholders evaluating corporate action and behavior based on whether they serve their interests. In terms of prior empirical evidence, okay, paper by Lannis and Richardson using Australian firms, they found positive association between CSR disclosure and corporate tax avoidance. In other words, the more they disclose their CSR engagement, the higher the tendency to avoid tax. Similarly, Davis et al. 2006 showed that US firms with higher CSR score pay less tax and more likely to engage in tax lobbying activities. And that leads us to the first hypothesis. Firms may respond to conflicting demands of heterogeneous audiences by engaging in organized hypocrisy, which result in positive association between CSR engagement and tax avoidance. On the other hand, firms could also balance the conflicting demands of this heterogeneous group of stakeholders by pursuing both economic and social objectives. In other words, firms not only strive to maximize the shareholders' wealth, but also participating in social activities, contributing or giving back to the societies. And if they adopt this approach, they use CSR engagement as a means of aligning their socially responsible talk, decision, and action. And this is what we refer to as walking the talk. And this is done in order to achieve moral legitimacy. So we have pragmatic legitimacy in the case of organized hypocrisy, and here we have moral legitimacy, which imply that stakeholders perceive the activities of the firm as moral in terms of being consistent, being congruent with social norms, rules, beliefs, and so on. For prior empirical evidence that support this theoretical framework, again, there is a paper by Lannis and Richardson in 2012 and 2015. They used both Australian and US company. They found that firm engaging in CSR activities has lower tax avoidance overall. And that leads us to our competing hypothesis, which is firm may respond to the conflicting demands of heterogeneous audiences by balancing the interests of stakeholders group, which result in negative association between CSR engagement and tax avoidance. In other words, the higher the CSR engagement, the lower the tax avoidance. So let's take a look at our research methodology. Our sample are taken from listed firm domicile in 12 countries for the period between 2006 and 2019. And these are the countries listed here: Australia, Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, the UK, and US. Why we selected this company? There are studies that document these countries are the forefront in terms of CSR engagement. We exclude financial firms, missing variables, extreme values, and after filtering these items, our final firm year observation is 13,301. Our CSR data is sourced from Asset 4. This is via Thomson Icon. Okay, and we have two alternative measure of CSR data. Okay, the first set, which is included in the main analysis, this is the average score of assets, environmental and social pillars. And the second variable is the dummy, which take a value of 1 if the firm's CSR score above the median and 0 otherwise. For tax avoidance proxy, we use 4 measures. The first measure, or the main measure, is the effective tax rate. And this is calculated by dividing current tax expense by pre-tax income. In our additional analysis, we also use the cash flow from operation in the denominator in order to account for accounting differences across country. We also include the country's statutory tax rate. And last but not least, the total book tax differences. And looking at the empirical model, this is our baseline model where we have the dependent variables, ETR. Our variable of interest is CSR or CSR engagement. And we have firm level control, and it's included here. And we follow existing literature to consider all these firm specific variables. We then include the country level factors or the institutional factors, And these are the disclosure index, book tax conformity, worldwide tax system, ownership concentration, IFRS, and statutory tax rate. So that's our model. And let's take a look at our descriptive results. So here you can see that firms domiciled in the US account for the highest firm year observation, and this followed by firms domiciled in Japan and the UK. The descriptive statistic also show us there is a significant or marked difference between the average ETR and the statutory tax rate across country. And generally speaking, the ETR or effective tax rate is lower than the statutory tax rate, with an exception of company listed in Italy and Japan. There's also a variation in average CSR engagement. So you'll see here, France has the highest CSR engagement, 0.636. On the other hand, the lower CSR engagement are firms domiciled in Australia, 0.362. And the last three columns relate to country level factors, the disclosure, book to tax conformity, worldwide tax regime, and ownership concentration. So our baseline result is reflected in this table. I'm going to focus on our variable of interest here. So what the results show us, these coefficients show a strong, negative, and statistically significant impact of CSR on ETR or tax avoidance. In particular, the estimated coefficient of CSR is negative 0.029 and highly significant at 1%, sorry, at 5%, 1% level. So what does it imply? Our results suggest that firms with higher CSR score enjoy lower tax burden. In other words, higher levels of tax avoidance. So this is consistent with our organized hypocrisy arguments. That is, the likelihood of tax avoidance is higher in firms in higher level of CSR engagement. So that is the main takeaway or the main story. We then expand by considering the corporate governance and financial systems mechanism and how it impacts the relationship between CSR and tax avoidance. So if you look at here, we divide company into two categories, the coordinated market economies and the liberal market economies. So what is the difference between the two? Example of liberal market economies are countries like the US and UK, okay, where the dominant roles are played by the market. Okay, whereas example of coordinated market economies include Japan and continental European countries, where the dominant role for coordinating economic activities are played by organized interests such as business unions and associations. So firms domiciled in CME generally adopt a more stakeholders approach and society-oriented approach as compared to firms domiciled in liberal market economies. So let's take a look at the result. I'm going to focus on this interaction between CSR and CME. And if you look at here, the interaction terms is positive and statistically significant at 1% level. Okay, and what the results show us, okay, it suggests that CSR firm domiciled in CME or coordinated market economies are less likely to avoid tax as compared to firms domiciled in liberal market economies. And this is consistent with the next column here, where we run separate regression. And if you look at here, there is a negative but not significant. But for the firm domiciled in liberal market economies, that is consistent with our baseline regression model. We also look at industry membership, and in particular, whether or not firms operating in environmentally sensitive industry. So what do we mean by environmentally sensitive industries? Okay, these firms generally have negative impact on natural environment. For example, these include oil exploration, okay, chemical, petroleum refining, metals, and mining. So we divide our firm into two categories, the ESI and non-ESI or non-environmentally sensitive industry. So if you look at here, okay, even though the results has negative standalone effect on negative coefficient on effective tax rate, the coefficient of the interaction between CSR and ESI is positive and statistically significant, implying that firms operating in environmentally sensitive industry are more likely to avoid tax as compared to their counterparts operating in non-ESI firms. So that's another important results of our study. We also check whether or not our baseline result is robust by conducting a battery of additional analysis. This include using alternative CSR proxy, as I mentioned to you just now, okay, as well as individual CSR pillars. Okay, we also use alternative tax avoidance measures, and if you recall, our sample is driven by US firm, so we also include only US firm as well as excluding US firm. And last but not least, this is typical in accounting and finance empirical research where you face with endogeneity issues. So we resolve this using the instrumental variables regression. I'm not going to discuss the result of this robustness test in details. You can refer to the paper as well as the tables, but the result in general are qualitatively similar to the baseline results. And therefore, the main conclusion that we can explain from our papers, okay, first we explore how companies maintain legitimacy in an environment characterized by conflicting demands of heterogeneous group of stakeholders and the inconsistent social norms and rules. So our main results shows that firms use CSR engagement, okay, to mitigate opportunistic tax planning activities, okay, and they support the organized hypocrisy view of tax avoidance. So what it implies, firms produce socially responsible talk, that is CSR engagement, and this is inconsistent with their actions or tax avoidance, and vice versa. In other words, they engage in action, tax avoidance, that are inconsistent with their socially responsible talk. And these tie back to the beginning of my presentation. If you recall, a lot of these companies, they are champion in sustainability, they are champion in CSR activities, but all these sustainability and CSR activities, they are peanuts. They do not cost them a lot of budget. But from the tax planning activities, the amount that they can benefit from avoiding tax is millions or even billions of pounds, and these benefit their financial stakeholders. So finally, firms do not engage in CSR activities to discharge their social responsibility to society, but to placate non-financial stakeholders. Finally, okay, our paper suggests that companies talk the talk without walking the talk. So that is my presentation. The subsequent slides relate to the additional analysis that we conducted to test the robustness of the main results. So you can find it here. Any question, please email me at bangor.ac.uk. I wish you all the best, and I hope to meet you in person in future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, the committee, for the video from Prof. Aziz, and all the keynote speakers already delivered their presentations. And now it's time we're going to Q&A sessions, and I'm sure that a lot of questions that enter to our Google form, and I will read some questions. Okay, the first question is from Bernia from Universitas Garut, and addressed to Professor Nicola Megic. The question is, based on Russia participations in the war so far, is it possible for us to improve economic conditions without Russia? Or should we ask Russia to re-participate in the global economy? Please, Professor Megic.
Wow, it's a tough question. It's a really tough question. How can you do business with a country that is, without the country that is calling itself or herself as a second biggest army in the world, or country that has 1/6 of space on the globe? Probably not. It's a challenging. What we should be thinking, leaders of the world should be thinking, how to help Russia to be different than it is, how to avoid of trying to be a dictator as a superpower. Okay, yes, Russia has a lot of natural resources, Russia has a lot of talent, but they have a lot of evils as well. And my answer would be, no, we cannot avoid not to do business with Russia. But even those 8,500 sanctions that just US has on Russia, they are built not to destroy the Russia, but push Russia to move in a different directions. Okay, and question was simple: can we do business without Russia? No. Can Russia be different? It should be different. It was different. However, historically, this is how we know the Russia. It's always, for at least several hundred of years, it's always been like expanding territories and going into wars in another countries, starting wars in Georgia, starting war in Chechnya, in Europe, in Prague, being still at that same time Soviet Union, etc. We do not need superpower like this on a globe. We are so civilized that we can do much better. I hope it's answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Magis, for your answers. We don't need the superpower, but we still need the Russia. Okay, the next question is from Ira Silalahi from Universitas Komputer Indonesia, and she addressed to Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati Muhammad. One of the efforts to promote the transparency and reduce corruption is to implement e-government. However, in its implementations, applying this digital technology will form a substantive social change in society. What do you think about the issue that the potential impact of digital technology and e-government on social attitudes about transparency? Please, Professor Nurhayati.
Okay, thank you very much. I think as we all know, and also as been pointed out in the article, the e-government is a tool to actually help combat corruption. And for the society, now one thing is that when we talk about ICT, digital technology, because of the fact that some of the citizens might not be in a situation that they have access to ICT. Yeah, so therefore they probably may not be able to be protected against corruption through ICT because of the fact that the ICT is not available to them, not accessible to them. And the fact that, again, the success of the use of e-government, ICT tools, it also depends on the structure, the societal structure of the country. So if the country may not have a very robust ICT structure, then therefore the e-government may not be able to combat corruption in an effective way. So that is also another reason why ICT tools may not work in combating corruption. Yeah. So what was the second part of the question just now? I hope I have answered the question.
Hello, Professor Nurhayati. If I may add to this, I found your presentation super interesting. Okay, I just let me add one thing as another keynote speaker. People ask about e-government. E-government actually exists today in Ukraine. Several years ago, when Ukraine elected new president Zelensky, he implemented a new ministry called the Digital Ministry, Ministry of Digital Technology. And government pushed everything from a paper to e-documents. That eliminated bureaucracy, like getting some paper, getting some confirmation, getting registration. Everything is in a digital today, because when country decided to join European Union and being as corrupt as entire former Soviet Union, Zelensky, when he became a president, he said, no more bureaucracy, no, fight the corruption, and reason and way to eliminate the corruption, implement e-government. It's mean in Ukraine, it exists today. As of today, they have digital ministry. Sorry for stepping in. But
No, no. I hope that the digital ministry will continue, and I hope Ukraine survive the war and be able to continue with that reform.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I want to continue the questions for Dr. Nohayati. What do you think about the issue and the potential impact of digital technology and e-government on social attitude about transparency?
On transparency. Again, thank you very much for the question. All this e-government is supposed to improve transparency, therefore improve accountability. Now, again, if the corruption is the petty corruption, then this ICT tool will be easier to actually address that petty corruption. But again, when it comes to grand corruption, the ICT tools that need to be developed has to be more sophisticated to allow people, different groups of people to be able to connect and actually fight corruption at the highest level. So when we have the judiciary, we have the politicians, we have the citizens. So with ICT, I think it provides information to people so that hopefully people are able to gather and be in a group and maybe voice their what they want in the election. Yeah. But again, as in Malaysia, in the last few years, what happened, we are in fact, we have to really be optimistic because our election also the other day, what happened, the takeover of the government and so on and so forth. But ICT has played a role, but the citizen also must be mature enough to look at and to evaluate the news, which are the legitimate news, which are the fake news. So citizens have to play that role and have to play that responsibility. Please look at the news and evaluate the news, as well as possible in order to make decision.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nurhayati. So beside the positive impact, there's still a chance as negative impact in digital technology, right?
Exactly.
Again, and then the next question is addressed to Professor Megits from Ferry Fernando from Institut Teknologi Bandung. The question is, within all the thieves, how would you think the aftermath of the conflict would be? Would it not change anything or would be a turning point for most world leaders to realize that war is never worth the aim? Please, Mr. Megits.
Can you repeat? I did not understand the question well at the beginning. Can you repeat it, please?
Okay. Within all the thieves, how would you think the aftermath of the conflict would be? Would it not change anything, or would it be a turning point for most world leaders to realize that war is never worth the aim?
Yeah, I apologize. My brain stopped working. It's midnight here in the United States already. It's time to be in the bed, but I'm trying to do my best. Okay, yes, I can tell you, war can be avoided. However, it still gives a positive result in every war. Okay, this is always positive that we should look for this. Yes, definitely. Casualties, thousands of people killed, economy is destroyed on all ends. It's not good. But those leaders of country, they're looking how to gain from this. Look, President Putin, he understands that he will have a loss of so many thousands and thousands of humane soldiers, and he's still sending them to the battlefield. Each day, hundreds, Some days thousands are killed. Okay, in 3 months, 35,000 Russians just killed. Same number, less or more, Ukrainians are killed. Foreign soldiers fighting. And what is the gain from this for Russia? They are battling for a position on the globe. Okay, they try to eliminate Ukraine from agricultural capacities that Ukraine has, because they're still fighting for the same buyers of the product. And same Ukraine lessons that Ukraine is learning today is, yes, we're losing a lot of people. We're losing entire cities like Mariupol. Cities of almost 1 million people doesn't exist anymore. No single building left standing. Even I don't want to go into detail, but I can tell this is what I read today. President Ukraine met with the mayors of the cities. Ukraine said we shouldn't be building panel structure buildings anymore. They are not sustainable in today's potential war casualties. It should be different structure. We should reform our economy. This is a lesson learned from this. Even just go in detail, United States, every time in America goes into the war, Afghanistan, Iraq, this is lesson learned, and exchange, improving of military capabilities, etc., etc. Yeah, okay, this is my answer. I know it's not the best answer, but this is a reality.
Thank you, Prof. Megits. Actually, I just bit curious. And next November, we have a G20 meeting in Bali, Indonesia. So as a scholar, what do you expect it from this meeting? Or what should the recommendation come out from this G20 meeting to change the global economic?
Yes, it's not only economics, it's politeconomics. It's politics and economics. They walk together, politics and policy and economics. Look how war started. Why war started on February 23, just 1 day after Beijing Olympic Games. President Xi of China asked President Putin, because world knew that Russia was ready to start the war. And President of China keep asking Putin, as long as Olympic Games, Winter Olympic Games in China going on, you cannot start the war, okay? This was the reasoning why Russia didn't start the war day before the 23rd. Here we're talking about the Bali. This is a time for Russia. If Russia wants to be invited and Putin wants to be invited, he said, yes, I want to be there. And here, this is opportunity for the world to push Russia to end the war by that time. Otherwise, who wants to shake the hand with a man who's been called killer, butcher by the president of superpower, president of the United States? Who wants to sit around the table next to the Putin, who is called officially a killer, genocide creator? For this reason, if war will start, would stop. It would stop before this Bali G20 conference in November. By that time, definitely Russia wants to gain more. It will be negotiations happening between Turkey, France, Germany, etc., and Russia and Ukraine, maybe next week even. But here's a great opportunity. Unfortunately, too sad that this conference is not in September or August. That would give a chance of war to end earlier.
So, in your opinion, Russia should come to this meeting?
In my opinion, yes, this is excuse for Russia. Today, world is pushing and pointing into the Putin, say, no, as long as you're in the war, you shouldn't be there. At the least, Putin should come to the November conference and say, okay, I came with whatever I achieved, but this is no war anymore. Okay, otherwise, I cannot see who will be sitting next to him. That happened before, if you remember, in Paris, when United Nations had to change the alphabet to have Gorbachev being present at the meeting of European Union, because nobody wants to sit next to him. It was Russia and United States should be next to each other.
Thank you very much, Prof. Megits. Thank you very much.
We hope that forum in Bali will bring a positive outcome, positive result. This is a hope for Ukraine to see war ended.
Amen. We hope so. Okay, I will read the next questions. It's from Bayu Indra Setia from Universitas Indonesia. It's addressed to Prof. Nur Hayati. The question is, according to how digital records can be altered, can we assume that both Corruption Watch and the corruption itself have equal footing when dealing with the cases? Please, Professor Nur Hayati.
Sorry, when dealing with, I didn't catch the last word.
Okay, I repeat the questions. According to how digital records can be altered, can we assume that both Corruption Watch and the corruption itself have equal footing when dealing with the cases?
Corruption Watch?
Yes, Corruption Watch and the corruption itself have equal footing when dealing with the cases.
Oh yeah. As I think as I've pointed out, and it was highlighted in the article, actually digital or ICT can actually enhance corruption if we're not careful. Because with the digital records, because now we are using ICT and we are digitalizing our records, and with the hope that that will secure the record better. But there's always a possibility that someone can hack into the records, and maybe having it on paper, it was safer, but in terms of people hacking, but it wasn't transparent and it's difficult to access the information and so on and so forth. Yeah. So as the paper highlighted very much that digital ICT tools can actually help combat corruption, but at the same time, it could also enhance corruption and making it at a global level. So we must be very careful. So we may have to develop other tools to ensure that ICT tools are not being used to support corruption, enhance corruption. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Nur Hayati. It's two sides of digital technology, right? Yeah.
Yes.
It depends on our controls and of how to operate of the digital technology.
Yeah, how we use it. Yes.
Okay.
Just I can give you, if I may, I can give you example of United States. What's recently happened? Not recently, 6-8 months ago, when entire main natural gas pipelines that goes from Texas to New York was hacked by the hackers, and it was locked down for a week. Can you imagine? And at the end, to let this system work back, hackers demanded, there's like rumors, $55 million to release access to this natural gas system. That means how that other people profiting from digital.
That's right. Another form of extortion, another avenue. Right.
Okay,
so
we're moving to
very dangerous.
Yes. We're moving to the next questions, and this question is addressed to Professor Megitz from Chang Kian Leong from LPKIA Bandung. The question is, Russia is invading Ukraine. So far, it seems that nothing bad is happening to the country, except some embargo or things like that. Is Russia just okay without any consequences or punishment as an invader? Do you think? Is it actually fair? What can we do individually? Please, Professor Megitz.
I wouldn't say that this is nothing. Some Russian propaganda would say, oh, we don't care. It's embargo is not really embargo, it's a sanctions and they do not affect them. Yeah, actually they affect them, especially being eliminated from major Russian banks, being eliminated from SWIFT system. They're not able to pay. They're not able to receive a payment. I can tell you one simple thing. I manage a small journal and I cannot get payments from Russia anymore. Okay, this is a minor things, but how to deal with big payments, for example, from oil and gas. For this reason, Russia demanded to be paid in rubles. Okay, nobody is allowed to deal with ruble because it's not a currency that the world recognizes today as a payment. It's not a part of the contract. In addition, look what's happening. Russian economy is, because of the sanctions, nothing flies in and out of Russia except those few confiscated airplanes. They are eliminated out of the world. Yes, they still have 150 million people versus Ukraine has a 40 million people. It's a big difference, big challenges. Russia been preparing for the war as long as Russia exists. Ukraine never started the war, being a very passive observer of, in the world. And again, being eliminated like Russia is, who is visiting today is Russia, okay? Look in Ukraine, every week, some prime minister, president, going to countries that is in the war. Give me the name who last was a leader of the nation who visited Putin. Was Lukashenko, who is his puppets, is a Belarus president, and only two leaders who are going from time to time to Russia as Macron from France and Scholz from Germany, because they are negotiating the end of the war and negotiating this food distribution from Ukrainian ports. Yes, we don't know yet what will be the consequences to Russian economy, but definitely even to remove all the sanctions, and we know the statistics that trade with Russia is a deepening and deepening like rubles, okay, every day. And all smart people, politicians are escaping Russia, okay? They are moved because they're not allowed to go to West. Where they go? Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, some go to Thailand, Vietnam, but they are moving out of the Russia. It's a huge problem. It's as huge problem that Putin signed the decree today that he's recruiting people as old as 65 years to go to war.
So in your opinion, as you mentioned in your slide presentations, the causes of this war is many causes. There is economic, there is politics. In your opinion, what's exactly the main trigger or the main causes of this war? Is it politics? Is it economic?
Mainly politics. Mainly politics, because look on the countries that wants to occupy, for example, another country or city. If Russia would care about economy, they would not destroy the city completely, because they would say, okay, we will come, we'll be a new ruler of this city. We need the building, we need infrastructure, we need the factories and people. They don't care. They just need a simple territory. And they want to show their superpower. And they have that territory. Look, Siberia is empty. People do not live 100 miles next to each other, 100 kilometers away from each other, and they still need more territories. This is politics. This is a way to show to show the muscles, how important I am today. Even if I'm missing the soldiers day and night, I still don't care. But this is a simple politics. Say, I have a nuclear power, I have nuclear bombs that I can throw into your country or other countries. It's just showing the muscle, showing how important, because unfortunately in the last 6-7 months, nobody took Russia very seriously, and only Putin decided the way for me, for others to take me seriously, is to start the war.
So in your opinion, which one more destructive? Pandemic COVID over 2 years, or this war, if this war still continue?
Absolutely war. How many people are talking about the COVID today? Remember that bars that I show, stability versus COVID on the far right? Okay, this is what, at least in my region, in America, everybody cares today that gasoline on a gas station is $4.50. Probably in 1 month, it will be $6. Nobody is wearing, almost no one is wearing a mask today, protecting from a COVID, okay? That is a good example, visual examples, COVID versus the war. Everybody, look on prices of food on the shelves in our stores. I hope that your country is not as affected by this war as other part of the world are. But earlier or later, that may come to your region as well.
We hope not, okay?
Yeah, but we are still global. We're still global,
yes.
and this is.
I'm sure that we can. Yeah. So what about Biden policy to face these conditions, the situations? Because a lot of people in US angry to Biden's. What do you think?
People people do not. Being in politics, this is a challenge. Okay, one day they like you because you give a lot of promises, and months later or 3 months later, those promises cannot be delivered. When people go, most likely in your country as well, in any country in the world, someone wants to be elected, they give promise left and right. Same happened with Biden. Same happened with his Vice President Harris. Look, the nice lady, she was in the Senate, very critical to Trump. It was easy to criticize Trump. When she became in the power, she got lost. And the first criticism to Biden was, where's your vice president? What is Kamala Harris, vice president, is doing? And she's doing nothing. We didn't hear her anymore. She was so voiceful when she criticized Trump for war with Mexico and hungry people. Since that time, she disappeared. Okay, the same with Biden. He is more popular in Ukraine than he's popular in the United States. And the reason for this are COVID. Okay, reason for this is economy that we are suffering today. And yeah, it is a reality. Every 4 years, we elect Republican or Democrat. And plus age factor plays another role in this. This is a time for a new generation. It's hard to deal with a president that has 70 plus years age and still wants to look like young man. Same happening with Putin, actually. We read a lot about age factors of presidency.
Can you imagine this situation is still under Trump administrations? What would Trump do to face these situations?
What he probably would not do. Let's talk Democrats versus Republicans. Okay, yes. When first time we elected Obama as Afro-American, it was like jubilation of the nation. More white people elected Obama than black people. 3 years later, 4 years later, people, even black people, got disappointed with Obama. When they elected Trump, many Obama followers says Trump had done more for black people than Obama had done. Okay. And when I was in one of the city driving in the taxi, and he said, I asked, why do you say this? He said, because under Trump, my wife finally got a job. Because Trump threw away Mexicans, and my wife can become a cleaning lady in a hotel, because Trump threw Mexicans who were cheap labor in the United States. I did not share this view. However, I'm just quoting some Afro-American. What would Obama didn't help Ukraine on the first time when Russia invaded Crimea? What Obama did at that time? Nothing at all. He just said, oops, unfortunately it's happened. Under Obama administration, Ukraine didn't get any single bullet from United States to defend Ukraine. When Trump came, javelins were sent to Ukraine, and Ukraine actually started pushing harder on Donbas region with using American military. It's when Trump was doing a lot, and he was like Trump just said recently, if I would be a president, Putin would never be so brave to start the war in Ukraine because he was afraid of me. Okay, and he might be partially correct, because Putin is the one who is easy, who can be who like to fight strong people. Okay, and Trump was strong. He was bully like Putin is, okay? And he might be afraid of him. I don't know. Maybe it would be politically something differently negotiated, but that would be a different story. Oh, my apologies. I didn't want to make this a presentation as a lecture on on the Russian war, but I can talk about this for days and hours as I keep reading and writing about this.
Thank you very much, Prof. Megitz. So I assume maybe you are a Republican, right?
Pardon me?
You are a Republican, right?
Me, Republican, depends on situation. One time I can be Republican, another time can be. I voted for Trump first time for the reason because I was taking his lecture how to buy real estate, and I have personally a tie, not this one but another. We called Trump ties. He signed it for me on one of his conferences. Okay, but today I do not support Trump's ideology because this is what he is doing and how he behaved. I believe it's rude, it's unprofessional, unethical, and in my opinion, Biden is a better president in general than Trump. Okay. This is how.
Thank you very much, Prof. Megitz. Outstanding, very outstanding. And we continue to the next questions.
I'm sorry, Dr. Andreas, may I know when will we end? What time?
Actually, we plan to end is 11:40, but we take a look the condition and situations about the questions, But we have to plan to end this plenary sessions is 11:40.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we still have a longer Q&A session because Professor Daniel F. Mayer cannot join with us for today. So the time from Professor Mayer is we move it to Q&A sessions, Prof. Nur Hayati. Okay, the next question is addressed to Professor Dr. Nur Hayati Mohammed. Is from Ibu Lilis Puswitawati from UNIKOM. The question is, how does digital technology fight corruption? Is there a theoretical model or design applications can be a solution? And are there best practice using ICT in fighting corruptions? Please, Professor Nur Hayati.
Okay. I think from what I've presented, it is really the effectiveness of ICT tool in combating corruption would depend on the matching, that whether or not the ICT tool is actually combating the right corruption. Because as we know, we have this petty corruption, which can be explained by the agency theory, but we also have this grand corruption. And most of the ICT tools that have been developed is actually to address the petty corruption. And ICT tools have not been successful that much in trying to combat the grand corruption. So therefore, when designing the tool, the ICT tool, the organization has to ensure that the design is actually, addressing the matching of the tool and the type of corruption is very important.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Nur Hayati. Actually, I have a little question for you about the cryptocurrency. If we're using digital technology, if we are using digital technology, why a lot of countries still cannot operate the cryptocurrency in their world, in their country? Because I think cryptocurrency is more safer if you want to make the fighting of the corruption. What's your opinion, Prof. Nur Hayati?
Okay, I'm no expert on cryptocurrency, but from what we have seen, what happened is maybe the digital currency itself is secure, but the market of it, it's like the stock market and so on and so forth, the market that trades the cryptocurrency, to me, is very unstable. And the regulation also is not very firm or not very strong at this point. So it's not, I think, the technology itself, but the market for cryptocurrency is very unstable. So that's how I see it. So, and that's why I think it's difficult for government to actually adopt it as their currency, because it's very speculative, you know. And I think countries are just holding off at this moment.
But in
Mr. Andreas, if you allow me, can I ask one question, Professor Nurkayati, or make some comments on because the topic of corruption is really intriguing to me. And I was because I lived in two different systems. One system was 40 years ago in the Soviet Union. Okay, now my life is in the United States, and I work for American government. And I'm looking on your topic of your presentation from perspective of being a representative or employee of American government, where I work for a state of International Trade Office for state of Minnesota in the Department of Economic Development, where we have access to the enormous funds that we distribute among different organizations and different division, etc. And issue of corruption is never even discussed in my department. It's never even been talking on the level of government, state government employees. And I'm asking myself this question: how come we are not talking about the issue of corruption in, at least in my government, the state of Minnesota? Even if we are dealing with the millions and hundreds of $millions being distributed among various nonprofit organizations. It's all open process, all digital. And yes, no doubt about this. We have some elements, and I can tell you what would be the example of corruption in my state. And it was heavily persecuted. One case, when a city senator, let's say, had a deal with a union representative, trade union representative of construction sector, construction union, and invited a construction company to work on his building remodeling. He was paying everything, but he moved the schedule ahead of others. Okay, it was nothing even bribery. It was like service that was out of the schedule, out of the order. Okay, this is what one example. Person went to jail for 3.5 years for that city senator for things like this. In my state, and I know at least I worked for a state 8 years, and before we never had the case that someone would take a bribe from any person for any kind of services. However, we are not the holy. I can tell you how this is done legally, and it still looks suspicious. We have this Anti-Corruption Act, etc. in America. However, this is a lot of agencies who call themselves consulting agencies. Okay, if you want to get a permit to build your building faster than standing in a line, you will go to consultant agencies who will help you to process the papers faster, because this is their service and they know someone in the city office who can help them to process the paper faster. It's mean you are not be dealing directly with a government employee, but as a customer or client, you will be dealing through some third-party agency who knows how to legally do the business with the government. This is my experience in America and how we deal with corruptions, and not having corruptions to deal with, actually. Very stable.
Yeah. Yep. Because corruption, the tools would be one thing, and also the opportunity, you know, and whether how well you develop your system to actually ensure that the opportunity is not there. And of course, when the punishment is there, you know, that will also deter people. Yeah. And I, you know, to some extent, like in my country, the graph that I showed just now really reflect the perception, because we were like, okay, we're getting better. And then suddenly, the score went down because public perception is just like going down in terms of corruption perception index for my country. So that's sad. And whether or not there is more corruption, that's another thing, especially the petty corruption. But the grand corruption, I think because of the 1MDB case that has not been settled yet, I think people are just, doesn't have that good opinion in terms of perception of corruption in Malaysia.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Dr. Andreas, I am so sorry. I did not notice that the session is going to be until 11:40. So I have to leave soon.
Okay.
I am so sorry to have to request that because I've made another appointment as well.
Okay. No problem, Professor Nurhayati. Thank you very much for your coming and for your presentations. It's very enlightened us. And I will wait you in Bandung actually.
Yeah, I hope I can be in Bandung one of these days. Professor Magits, have you been to Bandung?
I didn't get an invitation yet.
Make an event.
Have you been to Indonesia, Prof. Magits?
No, it's on my list one day.
Okay. You can do
bucket list. Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Andreas.
Thank you so much, Prof. Hayati. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed your presentation. So thank you again to the organizer. So I'm sorry I had to take leave. Yeah, Dr. Andreas.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Nurhayati.
Okay.
Send
You're
my
welcome.
greetings to all your friends, all your colleagues in UITM. Yeah, maybe next year I can visit your campus maybe.
Yes. Now the all are open. The borders are open. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we still have one question for Professor Magits. Yeah. It's from Camelia from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. The question is, in your opinion, does the US have an important role in resolving the conflict? Because another conflict involving the US as one of the supporters of a party received much greater majority support, more news coverage, and a more focused perceptions of the Western world than other parties who did not have the US as a supporter in the diplomacy carry out. Please, Professor Magits.
It's a challenging question, and I just trying how to be politically correct answering it. See, I teach a course of globalization one time at the university, and in my American class, it was a time of, let's say, President Obama period. My students, in general, were anti-globalization students in one of the class, and they said to me, America shouldn't be playing a policing role in the world. Let government of countries, foreign countries, deal with their issues on their own. America shouldn't be, let's say, in Iran. America shouldn't be in Kuwait. America should not be in Afghanistan, etc. This is actually doctrine of President Trump as well, that America should take care of its own business. Business of our own country first. However, if you look on the countries around the world, many countries are asking for America to intervene. Okay, if you like it or not, many countries, in our case, we talked today about the Russian-Ukrainian war, and unfortunately, United States stepped in and heavily helping Ukraine. America is heavily helping Israel today. Look on Europe, Eastern European country, Czech, Poland, and Slovakia, where American, not only troops, but American monies are there, American technologies are there. Yes, not everybody likes this. And for example, that doesn't make Russia happy, because they see that America is taking space in a region where they are looking for their zone as of strong interest, geographic interest, geopolitical interest. However, other countries like to see America stepping in and helping. When we talk about the West, or Western Europe, not all countries in Western Europe are happy with the United States as well. We all know about the NATO. America has 51% of all investment in the budget of NATO alone. And for this reason, being a major donor, America dictates the policy and politics. However, there's a small countries like Hungary, even a bigger country, France and Germany, they say, no, we don't like American kind of dominance in the NATO. But money dictates your position, because Russia today is economically poor. They cannot dictate economically. China is a superpower, second GDP in the world. They have that capital power to dictate and human resources to dictate the world policy and world politics. For this reason, okay, we may not like it, or many people don't like it, and I personally don't like America to be involved abroad. I would rather see, like many Americans, to our government, US government, to deal with our internal issues, but we are not, as America cannot survive alone. We are still united, we are still connected, and we are still dependent on many things from Indonesia, from China, from India, from Canada, from Ukraine, and including Russia the same way. This is my view on this situation.
But so far, there is no military backup to Ukraine. So instead, the US just helping for give the sanctions or embargo to the Russia. What about the military backup? It will necessary from US to give the military backup to Ukraine, because one of the issue is
No, this is a massive military supply to Ukraine. Unfortunately, all planes do not go to Ukraine. They're not allowed to land in Ukraine. They're all landing in Poland, and then everything is moved into train and through the railroad going to Ukraine. And Ukraine just recently received this $50 billion support from United States per week. We have 10 military planes coming with rocket launchers, with tanks, and many others. Everything that US military has is in Ukraine except one airplane. And this is what Ukraine keeps asking for: airplane we call it no-fly zone, okay? Because Russia has a dominance in a space, in the sky. And Ukraine doesn't have airplanes and keep asking for airplanes. This is one thing that Ukraine doesn't have it, and America keep telling that she will never step in providing airplanes to Ukraine.
Yeah, because the biggest issue is the cause of this war is the memberships of Ukraine into NATO. So maybe US has to take responsibility to Ukraine to give their backup to military. So I think because I see that Ukraine seems like still alone to face the Russia today.
Quite alone, yes, but no, NATO issue is not just today. Ukraine applied to NATO. This is actually trying to apply to NATO, wants to join NATO, and this is one of the excuses for Russia to launch a war, because Ukraine openly and wrote in constitution that we want to be a member of NATO and we want to join European Union, and this is an excuse for Russia to invade Ukraine. Unfortunately, NATO, that has 45 members, And this is a consensus has to be for new members to be advanced. If one member of NATO is against new member, that member never became. And definitely member of NATO. Definitely Russia has a lot of friends, in NATO. One of them is Hungary, and Germany or France. They will always vote against the Ukraine. I strongly believe that it was Ukrainian past president Poroshenko mistake to write in constitution that Ukraine wants to join NATO. And that was used as a reason to invade Ukraine, okay? And most likely, Ukraine would never be in a NATO in the near future, probably in my life, because it probably happens that the NATO will be disbanded faster than Ukraine will join NATO.
Okay, Prof. Megits, we know that today is very challenging to our global economics. I just want final question for you. Maybe it's a silly question for you. If one day Russia want to join European Union, what is your expectation? It is can help our global economics to change?
Actually, Russia was invited to European Union in 1990. Okay, yes. And Russia, no matter what, would never want to join other union. She wants to be in her own union.
Yes.
And Russia has that union, the union, and Putin's ideology, this is in his speech. He wants to recreate the Soviet Union. And he wants to have all those former 15 countries of former Soviet Union back under Russians' umbrella. Okay, for this reason, even if all 48 countries of European Union will be begging Putin to become, or Russia to become member of the European Union, they will say no.
Absolutely.
Come join my union. That would be the answer.
Okay. So thank you very much from your presentations. I have ordered from the committee that we have to end these discussions. I'm sure it's very, very interesting discussions, and yeah, but I'm so sorry that we have to end because due to time limited. And yeah, actually, I don't have any intentions to make conclusions, yeah, from all speakers today. But we are aware that the global economics have to change. Yeah, we have a pandemic. COVID-19 is almost over 2 years, and right now we're going to now we have a Russian and Ukrainian war. So it is a challenge that demands researchers, policymakers, and governments to address multiple dimensions that will go far beyond the implication of this pandemic and of this war. And hopefully we can change the global economic to stabilize economic global. And I would like to apologize to the participants that we cannot accommodate and answer all the questions. And once again, highly appreciate and thank you very much to all keynote speakers who have online as for today. And please give full applause to our keynote speaker for today. Thank you very much, Prof. Megits. It's very enlightening for us. And I just want to remind all the participants that tomorrow we still have a second plenary session, so with also 4 keynote speakers. And yeah, I mean, don't miss it, yeah. And don't forget, we still have a parallel sessions in the 13th. And thank you very much once again. And I return the program to the Pak Tantan as a master of ceremony.
Thank you.
Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Si berjoget, si berjuang,
Thank you very much, Andreas, for chairing this session. And we especially would like to thank Professor Megits, despite the time differences, but still showing his enthusiasm in this conference. But unfortunately, the time has to limit the discussion. And at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, this also marks the preparation for the panel session at 1300 later this afternoon. Please keep in mind that the committee has provided the links for the parallel sessions, and you will also be guided by one chair in every room. Okay, I think this is going to be the end of our plenary session. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you in the next conference face-to-face in 2023. That wraps things up for today. I am Tatan Tawami and my colleague
Andreas Darmayadi.
signing off from today's conference. See you in ICOBEST 2023 next year. Good afternoon and have a nice day.